heroes, I'm Genesis Butler. So if you all saw my last videos with one of the world's leading researchers, Poore, this is the follow-up, because one video with him was not enough. Okay, let's get started. There's a lot of people that say, like, whenever I bring up veganism and how animal agriculture is having an impact on the planet, they say, well, we eat like grass-fed beef, or we have free-range eggs, or free-range meat. Do you think there's any difference between that and regular meat?
Well, you can think of it in terms of a few different ways. The first thing is to say that all land that you convert to farmland, with some very few exceptions, reduces biodiversity. It takes habitat away from other species that could be using that land. So no matter how well you do it, it's almost always going to have an impact. There are some exceptions on biodiversity. Secondly, cows create a lot of methane, and feeding them grass is basically equivalent to converting coal, burning coal to create energy. So it's this, feeding cows with grass is a very, very, very powerful way to create emissions. So while it might be grass-fed, and maybe it's got some benefits in terms of how the product tastes, or maybe how the product appears, it's not an environmental solution.
Did you hear that? So even if your meat and egg options are organic, they're still hurting the environment. So is going vegetarian or reducing your meat consumption, is that a good thing for helping the planet?
Yeah, without doubt, it is a good thing for helping the planet. But I think some of the things that do matter is half of our beef production comes from dairy cows. So the meat that, in the surplus, as they're called in the industry, surplus cows, the male cows that you can't use to produce milk, are sent to slaughter. The dairy cows are sent to slaughter as well. And in fact, half of the world's beef production comes from the dairy industry. Milk and dairy are also very environmentally impactful. So we looked at data from 40,000 farms in basically every country in the world. And what we wanted to understand, was there such thing as sustainable meat and dairy? Is it possible to produce animal products with lower impacts than vegetable proteins? Even the lowest impact animal products are typically creating more emissions and using more land than vegetable proteins. And often, here's an example with cow's milk and soy milk, even the least sustainable soy milk, which is right up here, is still better for the planet than the most sustainable cow's milk. So that's a really important result that says that it's always going to be better to change your diet. By 2050, we're forecast to be consuming 1.3 trillion litres of dairy per year and about 500 billion kilograms of meat. And that's a 60% increase on today. And with that's going to come increasing burdens on the environment, but also increasing impacts on all the animals and the industry that's producing them, and all this demand that's coming on is largely coming from intensive animal production. And that is a huge challenge for our society. And from an animal welfare, animal suffering perspective, it's incredibly important that we do not let this happen, that we stop this dramatic transformation of the environment and our treatment of other species driven by our taste preference, largely for animal products.
So even reducing the amount of meat consumption is a good thing. Comment a thumbs up emoji if you think you can reduce your meat consumption. How many more years do we have till it gets that high, if it does?
It's forecast to increase by 60% our demand for meat and dairy by 2050. In the next 50 years, we're going to have to produce more food than we've produced in the entire history of humanity.
So what will happen if we don't change our diet?
Well, if we don't change our diets, agriculture is going to become an increasingly large share of our greenhouse gas emissions. So we address all these other sectors, we don't address agriculture. It could be in 20, 30 years' time, instead of a quarter of our emissions like it is now, could be 50%, 60%. So that's one thing. We just leave it out of the equation, and it is the main driver of climate change. Secondly, we're going to keep seeing that rapid loss of tropical forests. We've lost an area in the last 15 years the size of the United Kingdom, France, Germany, Spain and Portugal combined, which is a massive area of land of tropical forest that we've lost. And we're going to keep seeing that loss if we don't address our diets.
So what would you say to people that want to protect the planet?
I would say start with the thing in your life that is easy to change and is incredibly powerful for the environment, and that is your diet.
Wow, these facts just blew my mind. I hope they help inspire you to make some positive changes in your food choices too. Make sure you're subscribed and that you've hit that notification bell, and keep watching to see who I will talk with next. Bye, heroes.